anything else you want to talk about?
I gotta get dinner before everything closes, but we could talk briefly about Star Wars.
It was okay.
Do we want to do spoiler discussion? Or
all right.
Would you want to hold spoiler discussion until next week?
No.
We could do.
No, we're gonna do it now.
We're gonna do blow it up.
Just a few minutes. Listen, if you're still listening, you haven't seen Star Wars, and you want to see Star Wars, stop listening. This is a spoiler alert. Okay, you've had your time. Go away. Turn off this audio because we're about to spoil the movie and tell you all about how Kylo Ren is actually Darth Vader reincarnated via DNA sampling. Okay, now that everybody's gone, people are probably already gone, even if they've seen the movie. They don't want to hear us talk about it. I thought it was maybe the fourth or best Star Wars movie. The second act was complete crap. Benicio del Toro was wasted, should not have been in the movie. I question the idea of having the character Rose in the film. Finn was just out trying to go find a code cracker in the movie, and that was it. That's all he did. And then he fought Captain Phasma, and she died.
Well, it was a lot.
Everybody died in this movie.
The problem with the second act wasn't that it was. I mean, it was really long, but then it ultimately didn't matter, really, and that was, I think, problematic because you could probably trim it up a little bit since it resulted in nothing. They failed and didn't even succeed at the task they were doing.
Yeah, it was awful. They're on a casino planet trying to find a code breaker. The code breaker they want's actually not available. They get arrested. They get a guy who's just in a jail cell and looks like Benicio del Toro.
It is Benicio del Toro. That was not a CGI.
Oh, okay. There wasn't a CGI Benicio del Toro?
So my problem is that it felt like Rian Johnson saw Force Awakens, didn't like anything that J.J. Abrams did, and spent a movie sort of undoing it. And then I read an interview with Rian Johnson that said basically he was allowed to do whatever he wanted, and that it really was basically his just reaction to Force Awakens, and that there was no. And the other problem with it was it didn't feel like the middle of a trilogy, that there's essentially nowhere to go after this other than they're going to have a war and the resistance and First Order are going to fight, whatever.
Well, the 4 resistant members against the 3,000.
Yeah, so because the resistance sounded like 12 people.
Literally, they're on one ship. At the end of the movie, there's like 20 people.
And he was, and Rain said he wasn't given any sort of bullet points he had to hit. He was just sort of told to make a movie, which is fine for good for him and creative freedom and all that. But I think if you're setting out to make a trilogy, you have to have some sort of through line, an idea of where you're going to go. Because now I just see it as being J.J. Abrams is going to kind of flip everything that Rain did to go back to what he liked, and it's going to be kind of a discombobulated mess.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And it started. You knew this was not going to be a really great continuation of what J.J. Abrams set up with the mystery and everything when they start off after about a 15-minute space battle, which was fine. Apparently there's gravity in space now, and you can drop bombs. That's dumb. Also, they go to the island where Luke is at, and they start off where they ended the first movie, and Rey hands the lightsaber over. Luke looks at it and throws it over his shoulder over the cliff. Pretty much saying everything you expected.
Well, then Kylo Ren, I think the scene before that, destroyed his helmet.
But all because Supreme Leader Snoke just said, "Why are you wearing that helmet? It's a toy. You're a boy." The helmet
was like one of the biggest things in the first movie.
Because he was obsessed with his grandfather.
Yeah, and so he just sort of threw it away. So it just sort of felt like.
Then even I mean, they're even saying it. They're not just visualizing it. Kylo Ren throughout the whole movie is saying, "Forget the past. The past doesn't matter. Join me. None of this matters. My father didn't matter. Snoke didn't matter. Everything we set up in the first movie in the first half of this film doesn't matter."
And I think they're trying to get you to care about these new characters, which is fine, and I understand that. And
they're not doing a great job of it.
But the point is the idea that the mythology isn't as important as the characters. But the problem is these characters aren't given. I mean, Kylo Ren, and some people like Adam Driver's performance a lot more than I do.
I think he's fine.
He's been given at least something to play, whereas Finn, Poe, and Rey are basically blank slates and have nothing.
Poe is probably the strongest of those 3.
And that was just this movie. In the first one, he had nothing.
he was supposed to be a nothing character.
He was supposed to die,
and then,
yeah,
he
he
was supposed to
just
die,
came
and then they realized, oh, this guy's a star and is a really good actor.
Yeah, Oscar Isaacs was pretty good.
Yeah.
But so I'm just saying that I don't care about the characters because Rey she plays plucky, but she's not given anything to play. Like it's just sort of.
Well, you kept waiting for that moment in this film for Rey to have a big moment of realization that affects the story, not necessarily a realization that makes her question things. Right. She continues to question everything. She asks who her parents are in that cave, doesn't get an answer.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren tells her you came from nothing, and it just kind of makes her like, oh, and then there's a lightsaber between the two of them. They're fighting over who gets the lightsaber, and it explodes.
And I never felt like, I think one of the big
things
it hinges on is you believing that there's some sort of threat that Rey would go over to the dark side, which I never sort of.
Well, what they did with this movie is they try to make the opportunity, the door open that Kylo Ren might go to the light
But
side.
I never felt either of those were at any realistic possibility.
Well, I kind of thought that maybe Kylo would flirt with it. He wouldn't do it in this movie, but it would open him up to it because he saw.
But if they go back to that now again in the third one, I think they're out of there.
No, to be honest, I think
they gotta shut that door.
I think the third movie now is Kylo Ren is going to be the ultimate bad guy now. There's no turning him back. There's not going to be any retribution in his final minutes like with Darth Vader. He's going to be the ultimate
You'd hope.
bad.
Because story-wise, that's the other thing that makes sense.
I think that choice was made. I think that choice was made.
And I think when you look at it, because it is a middle chapter, since they announced it as a trilogy, there's no sort of cliffhanger or intense need to go, oh, I want to see the story finished. There's no propulsion to the next movie.
Well, because the only propulsion for the next movie makes it seem like it's going to be 5 or 10 years down the road as far as timeline.
Where they're building up, because the way they
set it up is the Resistance is like 20 people now. The First Order is humongous, and it ends on an image of a small child looking up to the stars and possibly using the Force to get a broom,
right,
and thinking there's hope out there in the galaxy. Well, guess what? That kid's 11.
Guess what? There's no hope.
Well, that kid's 11. When's he going to be ready to fight for the
Resistance?
Resistance?
I don't know if he's necessarily the guy that's.
But who's gonna be able to get ready? How are they going to get that many people available? It took. Okay, I've been playing Star Wars Battlefront 2. In that game, they make it clear throughout that it took 30 years for the First Order to be built up to what it is right now.
But it was interesting. I mean, the crawl in this movie is like a retcon of the first one, because from my understanding of The Force Awakens was the First Order was sort of like a small pocket of Empire sort of holdovers that rebuilt the thing. But the New Republic, which was the government that was installed after the one in the Return of the Jedi, didn't want to recognize them as a threat. And so the Resistance was the thing battling them. But at the same time, the Resistance was sort of almost bigger than the First Order, since it had the back. You know, it was the First Order wasn't this big, huge threat. It was sort of like a smaller thing.
Well,
and then they destroyed the planet that they were building up to be their weapon, but that didn't set them back at all, apparently.
Not everybody's on that.
And then the First Order's in control of this next movie.
All right, so they destroyed one planet. The First Order destroyed like 30 planets or whatever, 10 planets in the New Republic. Remember?
I thought they just did the one.
No, they did more than one. It was multiple planets.
I don't remember.
Yes, multiple systems.
Remember,
because the laser bent off in pieces like Darkseid's laser. It broke off into different sections and blew up a bunch of planets.
No, maybe I don't
Several
remember.
Planets in the New Republic were blown up.
It's just it just didn't feel.
That's why Leia in this movie is talking about reach out to the outer rim where there's some holdovers because the planets are gone.
Interesting. Maybe that's what I missed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So it makes sense that they're smaller, but that goes to my point. They're going to have to fast forward this thing like 5 years.
If they only have 12 people, it's going to be difficult.
But how do you end that? You just end it on a movie where it's a infiltration something and Rey shows up and kills Kylo Ren and ends it.
But there's
all?
just no. I don't feel need for another Star Wars.
I don't either. I don't know I don't know where it goes next, but it's not because I wonder what's going to happen. It's what do you do next? That's
I texted my wife after I saw it. She's like, "What do you think?" I was like, "I think I'm done with Star." It's like I'm done. I don't need another Star Wars movie. They didn't make me want to see another Star Wars movie.
And they should have. At the very. The
And
thing
it's
would
not
have
just
been made.
because I think some people are like hung up on the Skywalker of it all, but it's not even that. It's just that the idea that there's nothing interesting about what the situation they've set up for the next. It's just it's the same thing as the Empire versus the Rebels. It's the Resistance versus the First Order.
Yeah.
There's no sort of unique part to that conflict that I've sort of have.
And the Supreme Leader now, there's no shadowy figure. It's Kylo Ren. Even at the end of the movie, they're calling him Supreme Leader Ren.
Right. And there were no mysteries that sort of carry through now to the next. There's no.
The only mystery, they answered one mystery, and that's Rey doesn't have parents worth a damn.
Parents are quote unquote garbage people.
Garbage people. No one. They were drunks and they left you behind on that planet. Which maybe Kylo's lying to her to get her.
Well, that's the thing. But that's why if J.J. Abrams
he could retcon.
But then that kind of devalue. Each movie devalues the previous. That's not how you're supposed to do a trilogy. Whereas the Marvel, I know the Marvel method is not everybody, but I mean, there's a lot of forward momentum with each one of those movies that you're always kind of curious as to what the next step is going to be and how they're going to incorporate that group of characters with the other groups of characters. Whereas you've got these prequels. You've got these prequels at the side that don't matter. You've got the main trilogy that exists, but I mean, I don't know.
Force Awakens. I liked Force Awakens, and at least at the very end of that, it sets up.
There's a big question, but that's what I'm saying. There's a very.
But you also know, hey, Luke Skywalker is going to be in the next movie and is going to be a focal point,
right?
And then he is, but he never leaves that planet. He never has a lightsaber duel.
The lightsaber duel
that's his goodbye.
The lightsaber duel.
He never leaves the planet and never has a lightsaber duel.
The lightsaber duel is a hang up.
What if I told you after you saw Force Awakens, I go, Mike, you see this scene right here?
That's it.
That's the most action you're going to see out of him. He's not going to leave this planet. He's not going to get in one lightsaber duel, and then he's going to die.
I think, and spoilers, obviously. I was fine with the way they handled him up until the moment that he died.
Did you cry?
No, I just thought.
No, don't believe me.
You can't fake his death. You can't. So they hinted that he was going to die. Then he didn't. He revealed that he didn't, and then he died anyway. It was redundant. Like you just pulled the rug out of you set up your expectations, played against them, but then went back to them. I don't understand that.
I think they did that for that reason, but also to set up him looking at the two suns and the darkness.
You could have that shot in the next movie.
Of him dying in front of the suns?
Yeah, looking at suns in the dark.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But I thought, and especially given that Carrie Fisher passed away, and that's unfortunate and untimely, but that she wasn't going to be able to kind of carry through what they thought would be her focus.
Well, the original plan apparently was to make her the focus of the third film.
But knowing that she wasn't going to be able to do that puts it. It's a strange sort of place to be, because she'll basically die off screen.
Right,
which would lend credence to your 5 to 10 year
that's
jump
why
too.
I think they'll do that. And it gives J.J. Abrams more room to build things up, and
they might out of necessity just because of that. And I'm sure Luke will come back in a cameo appearance. But I just thought with the wink and saying "see you later," it set up an epic. I thought it set up an epic confrontation for the third one,
an actual in-person confrontation,
and that's your that's what carries you through and wants you to make you see Luke. Because I think he's, especially the way that character was played, he would have a third movie to do something different with the way.
Here's the thing: Kylo Ren's all about deleting the past and everything. He has no past to delete in the third movie now.
Right,
everything's dead and gone. So what do you do with that? How do you make us care more about these characters without the characters that were their backbone?
Yeah,
and their reason for doing what they did, their motivation. What do you do in the third movie?
And just one small nitpicking, the handling of R2-D2. So they bring Luke Skywalker's best friend onto this planet, and they forgot about him on the ship and just leave him there. So Luke sneaks onto the ship. He's like, "Oh, hey R2, you're my best friend," and they just left him in the ship. Then was he not seen the rest of the movie? They just left him in the ship.
Yep.
Sort of weird.
Well, BB-8's the one selling toys now.
Porgs are selling toys.
And Porgs. There were more Porgs on that ship than crewmates.
But that was sort of weird. It just sort of seems like they... I think if you had somebody saying, look, these are character beats we need to hit, or these are... Well, just you have a sort of outline for each character that gives you a clear...
As much crap as J.J. Abrams gets for mystery and questions, I much prefer The Force Awakens over this.
No, I think this was a better made Star Wars
Stop
movie.
it.
No, I believe that fully. Somebody described it, because J.J. Abrams wasn't like a Star Wars fan as a kid. That was what he thought people would like in a Star Wars movie, and then this one was like what a Star Wars movie was.
By the way, everybody kept complaining about how there's always some Death Star and then the Star Killer base. How about in this movie, the big weapon is it's made from Death Star technology. It's just a smaller thing that's going to blow a door off.
Well, technology's a little weird in these movies. All of a sudden, they've got hyperspace drive tracking, and then the people that were being like just figure it out in 3 seconds.
Yeah,
it doesn't. I mean,
their big weapon was a mini Death Star. That's what we're at now.
Well, they did. I mean, look.
and here's the other thing. They decided to drop it off 2 miles away from the door instead of dropping it off right in front of it. So they have to drag it to the door to build the tension.
That the tension built.
And then hologram Luke Skywalker shows up and
force projection
gets shot up, and he does a thing with wipes the dust off his sleeve, which was cool, but also kind of out of place because when has anybody ever in Star Wars done a pop culture Earth moment?
Do you think he was referencing Jay-Z in that?
I think
moment?
he was.
I don't think that's what he was doing. I think he was just being a showboat, a showman.
He also didn't have anything on his shoulder because he was a projection.
He was a force projection.
But, I thought the idea of him doing that was great, but don't kill him off. Don't make it, that took too much out of him. That
was
killed
stupid.
him.
Yeah,
It's
that was
dumb. He's not 500-year-old Yoda.
That was dumb. I think the movie would have...
It'd been much better.
I think it would have ended on a better note. I think it would have felt better about the whole movie if they had set that
More
up
than
differently.
anything, it felt like Johnson did that for shock value. He felt like at the end of this movie, I have to have someone die.
And he talked about it like he's like, I knew when I got to the end that this had to be the end for the character. And I didn't see that journey at all like that. I thought it would have done the like I just read it differently.
Because you set it up as this guy's a hermit and has completely kind of changed the way he
learned a lesson
system
and now
is.
he's going to fight the fight instead of trying to just die on an island by himself. He's realized that he doesn't.
So how does he go from Luke Skywalker, savior of the galaxy, has accepted that and being that hero to I'm going to be a hermit, where we just see that because of the Kylo Ren thing, to suddenly wanting to go back and face off against Kylo Ren and then die?
No.
He would be smarter about it, right? But I guess his line of, you can strike me down in anger and that'll only make me stronger, which sets up him being a Force ghost.
But the whole thing was you were playing.
That?
But what's interesting is they did a nice job playing off the obviously New Hope with Obi-Wan doing that because you think Luke's going to sacrifice himself, and then he doesn't do that. And so I thought that was good, subverting your expectation. But then he dies anyway, which was sort of, it didn't land. It just was like, that's kind of dumb.
It was almost like a virtual reality thing. Like someone was playing a virtual reality game, they died in the game, and they took it off. Went, man, that was a heck of a game. Then they had a heart attack on their couch.
And why would the energy, if he's a force projection, all it was is he's projecting himself. Why would that? He wouldn't be physically hurt because he wouldn't have to physically defend himself. It exhausted
him.
It was tired.
It gave him a heart attack, I guess, and he disappeared. Explain that to me about the Force. Why do people just disappear in thin air?
Because you come one with the Force. One with everything that binds. I don't know.
That doesn't... We're all carbon.
I don't know the technical terms about it, but I just it's.
You see where Mark Hamill's already saying, like, I think I might just sneak on set and be like a catering boy.
I don't think he was particularly thrilled with his.
I wouldn't either. They tell you you're going to be in the first movie. They made him lose all this weight.
That was
good. And then he gets the script and goes, I'm in the last scene and I don't
throw
say
it
a
in the
word.
dumpster.
And then the second movie, you're just going to kill me? Mark Hamill deserves better. Star Wars fans deserve better. Thing is, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I enjoy them. But God, that movie was so mediocre.
It was pretty bad.
It was just, I wouldn't say it was bad. It was just mediocre. I went into it like trying to be very clean about like I don't want to know anything.
Yeah, I didn't look at any spoilers.
I didn't look at a lot of trailers or anything. I want to be fresh and clean on this. And I went in, and even with that, nothing. I was just like, yeah. And then when Hamill shows up, and you think he's there and he's fighting, you're like, oh wow, And then they completely ruin that experience for you by saying he's not there, and also he dies on a rock on another planet.
No.
So,
good times.
But the after credits scene, when Thanos showed up, And
Where all the porgs do weird stuff.
What was Chewbacca going to do with all those porgs? He had like 20 on the ship.
Dinner.
He's going to eat them all?
Yeah.
He had a family of porgs on there that were laying eggs. Did you see that scene?
Yeah, they were in the wiring, right?
So he's just going to eat them? That's what it's all about?
I think so. Breed them or sell them for fur.
Yeah. By the way, we finally get the moment of Chewbacca hugging Leia.
Yeah.
That should have happened at the end of Force Awakens.
When he just walked past her and was like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah. Well. Han's dead. Yeah. BB-8 operated a AT-AT or whatever.
Yeah. Not the AT-AT, the AT...
AT-ST?
Yeah. The small
I don't even
one.
think it was that, though. There's a different kind that's in the video games where it's open and you just sit in it. And you're open to the elements.
Yeah. But I thought the top got pulled off of that when they
Toys.
revealed him.
I don't know, probably. And Captain Phasma gets to just go, hey, I remember you. Oh, I fell down this pit.
Yo,
You can
what
see
a
my
waste
eye.
of a character. And like she was at that read through too, like when they did that big picture, wasn't she? And like they like made her to be like, I don't understand why you
Too
promote
many
that.
times. They're trying so hard to just do what happened in the original trilogy. Maybe she's such a badass, but let's do it like Boba Fett, where the less of her you see, the better, and then we'll
She
kill
has
her.
nothing on Boba Fett.
She had no, well, I agree with that. Boba Fett's a vigilante.
He's a vigilante.
He's a bounty hunter. Hired, and he
Striking fear
leads
in the
all
streets
those,
of
and he's
Gotham.
going after him. Whereas she's just on a ship all the time, just standing there. And when someone runs into her, she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna fight you," and then she gets killed. Or does she get killed?
She's dead. She's dead. She's definitely dead.
Never got to see her face. Just got to see
Just
her
her
eye.
eye.
That was a very Darth Vader RoboCop moment, showing the eye before they die, with their helmet on.
But again, she got killed. That was another J.J. Abrams. Just throw
yeah,
down,
and
throw down
J.J.
the fire
Abrams
here.
kept saying that character's going to have much more to do in the future.
And nothing.
And she did not have anything to do.
She
was
died
standing
in
on the
she
bridge.
died in a garbage chute, not to die, and then to only die in a pile of flames. Good stuff.
I thought I'd never say this, but this movie needed some Harrison Ford. They were missing that element. All right. Every movie's got to have a character that represents the audience. That's like, ooh, wow, how's this happening? What's this going on? What's that? Han was always kind of that person. He was kind of always outside of everything. They didn't have that in this movie. Everybody was either super or wacky.
It's the porg.
The Porg represented the audience.
Yeah.
That's about as close as it got with their reaction to one of the porgs being cooked and eaten, or almost eaten. They needed to have a grounded character that was like, for example, it would have been great use of the Laura Dern character with the purple hair. She's this general, no nonsense or whatever, and doesn't care anything that Leia's done or what Poe's thinking and all this stuff. It goes against them or whatever, and saying, this stuff you guys have always done all these years makes no sense. You need to do this, you need to do that, or whatever.
And
Develop a
surrenders
character.
and then executes all the characters on the ship.
Maybe something like that. Or seriously.
Dark ending.
Like she surrenders and like half the crew gets
Right.
murdered or something. Or she turns off and joins the dark side with them, or not dark side, but joins the First Order and surrenders, and Leia and them have to escape. That'd be much more exciting than them just rolling around in space for 4 days,
I don't think were they rolling? I think they were more floating.
cruising at
Cruising.
for 4 days, getting
Cruising.
shot at.
I think
It's like an
cruising.
episode of Battlestar Galactica.
It was an episode about. I think that was an episode of Battlestar Galactica. There weren't any Cylons though.
No, it would have been much better if Cylon showed up, kill everybody, kill the Resistance and everybody.
Whoa, you're fired up now.
I am.
You're
They
ready
need,
to
to
kill
make
them all.
they need to make a Battlestar Galactica movie. That's what they need.
Ugh, let's talk about another bad ending to something.
I like the ending.
Get me started on that.
It's all about characters. They did a good job with it. All right. This is an hour long. No one listened to this last half.
And if you didn't see Star Wars and you're listening, we're sorry.
We're sorry. It's over. By the way, Snoke died. That was dumb. That was dumb. I mean, the way they did it was cool, but he had, like, who is he? Why is he there? And the CGI was awful on him. I don't care what you say.
What about the Knights of Ren that they promised? Those don't. Did
Where
those
are they?
even
Do they
exist?
exist?
I don't think
I
so.
kept thinking they were going to hint that those guys in red were, and they were going to turn on
You're
Snoke.
right. Yeah. No, that would have made sense because that would have actually meant that they existed somewhere. But
I kept thinking that because they were standing there not making any movement. So that was going on. I go, these are going to be the Knights of Ren. They're going to turn on Snoke, kill Snoke.
I'll tell you, everything J.J. Abrams
Rey.
sort of thought, oh, this will be interesting to set up for the next movies. There's nothing.
But there was no surprise like that. And that's something you could have easily built in. Like,
sure,
these guys in the red that are.
But that's having an outline
Knights
for the 3 movies. You got to have some sort of story.
What they could have done.
Throughline.
Here's my Star Wars story. They killed Snoke. He stands up. Kylo Ren stands up. He takes the throne. He literally sits on a throne. They capture Rey, and they've kidnapped her going into the 3rd movie. And the Resistance
Something
can't get her.
interesting. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
And she's still trying to fight him to be.
How'd you get off the ship?
Great question. Yeah, how did she get off the ship?
No answer.
That movie. Okay,
Now you're done.
I'm not singing it again. All right, thank you. This has been the Auburn Undercover Podcast presented by WeHaveDonuts.com. They'll keep making Star Wars movies and they'll keep making money, and DC Comics is in the toilet. Thank you.